You're listening to The Sixth Hour, Airsoft Through Silk's Eyes, RT06, an in-depth, informative podcast about all things airsoft. A veteran player of 4 years with a MilSim team shares his experiences for players new and old. The Sixth Hour, Airsoft Through Silk's Eyes, RT06. Episode 4, Phase 1, Crawl, Walk, Run. So now that we've been to a couple of games and we basically at this point we knew what airsoft was all about. We had a good idea what we wanted from the team. We wanted to all play together, working toward one objective, because a lot of the games that we played at SOF were objective based. And there was a little bit of a, I'm not going to really say command structure, but like somebody was making decisions and everybody else was sort of listening. And in the beginning, it was kind of just essentially like the three of us, with Ryan sort of taking the reins on admin stuff behind the scenes a little bit.
Being Ryan had a little more experience with airsoft in general, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that he did a lot of paperwork early on. We all sort of helped build the Facebook page and whatnot, but I'm going to absolutely say that Ryan in the beginning helped out a lot with that sort of stuff. And yeah, again, so SOF for the first few months was basically our home field.
Yeah.
We played at SOF pretty much every 2 weeks. As long as there was games hosted, we played. Like I remember our first year, we actually played on I don't want to say it was Easter Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Good Friday.
Yeah, Good Friday. That's what it was. There was a game on Good Friday, so I know that I basically went straight from airsoft to a family event. Like my family's my mother's side of the family anyway is Catholic. So there was a big family shindig, as I know that Larry, obviously, being with my sister, we had to go to my place, gear down quickly, and then head over to the family function that was at my mother's house on Good Friday. So our tempo early on for the first few months was pretty high. We attended, like I said, all the games that were at SOF that we could. They were all hosted with objectives in mind. They were all objective-based games.
We later consider these mil skirms.
Mil skirms, yeah. So MilSim. So this is where we actually pretty well in the first few months of us playing as a team heard this buzzword, I like to call it, MilSim. It stands for military simulation, and what it is a large-scale game that has a lot of different objectives going on all at the same time, and it's essentially force on force, sometimes with a dedicated op force, with a third party, sometimes mixed in, sometimes the civilian elements, and it's a large scale objective based game. With the term is MilSim, military simulation, and in Ontario, especially, we come to learn early on that there is one specific venue that hosted them, and back then in 2012, again, Doc with his internet skills had found videos, and Doc, I think, what was Ryno back then?
Operation Ryno.
Operation Ryno, yeah, 2011. The game was hosted,
and it was
it was at Craig Picton Complex,
which is in
which is owned by PRZ Paintball.
Yeah.
It's an old. I
think it's
World War II?
Well, I think it was in runnings up into the early '90s. I believe it was so there's a military base. It's closed down now, but it was I think an airstrip or.
Well, it was a hospital.
But yeah, it was a hospital for the military, and I think actually the
airstrip
asylum at one point.
Yeah, then I believe it.
Yeah, it's a touchy word, but
yeah. Well, it's so. Anyways, you can also find information on this Picton complex on haunted websites about places in Ontario.
It's
Prince Edward County.
Yeah, Prince Edward County.
Yeah. So
just Google it. It'll come up. There's tons of stuff about it.
Yeah. So for us, it was 2012.
Post pictures up.
The games that was hosted there was a big one that we were hearing all about. Was the big game the year before was Operation Ryno, and Larry had found videos of this. Yeah, and there was helicopter insertions.
The facility is amazing. Like it's the only facility like this in Canada.
So we went from playing in forest.
Playing in a forest to now having the opportunity, like seeing that we have this available to us.
Yeah, it was a must-have for us. So many things that had come before. As soon as we saw it, we had to have it. With Larry when he found the quality airsoft guns, we had to have them. myself as a kid, when I would see certain pieces of equipment, I had to have them, and it's never changed. You got to have it, right? So we saw this facility, and we had to play there, but we weren't quite ready yet where we were.
Luckily for us, at the same time, I guess there's another large Ontario-based team that was planning an event there.
Yeah, and that's
Force
came
Recon.
to known as the infamous.
And that became known as the infamous
Nightfall
series.
So here
they're selling tickets this weekend tomorrow.
Yeah,
tomorrow
for Nightfall 5. So here in Ontario, Force Recon is a team that's played south of the border quite a bit. They've been to a lot of the big American games, and in the States it's totally different.
Well, they've taken some of those things that they've learned from those venues and
brought them back to Canada
for us, and which is like it's a big deal. Like they've done a lot of work to get to where they are right now. And
absolutely, and
you
got to give them
appreciates that.
Yeah, you got to give them the credit. They really have changed airsoft in Canada for the better.
100%.
And for the better, and what they've implemented, it's starting to catch on pretty much everywhere else across the board, as far as like the medic rules and a lot of the ammo rules with having to reload back at spawn. I mean, that's pretty much a given.
Deploying as squads,
having a set structure base.
It became really team based.
Yeah, so the military simulation aspect, this is where it really takes off. Where you have,
this is where we really.
Yeah, you have a command structure like other than your own team. So Rapture Team goes to an event like this, and then we have to answer to a commander who then has a 2IC, who then would have platoon leaders broken down. Where these platoon leaders are now telling your squad, which would be Rapture Team at this level, what to do, and we go and do it. And it's essentially the way we play and the way we are dedicated to what we do. This is more important than what my boss would tell me at work. I go and if I'm tasked with holding a crossroad in the middle of the night, freezing cold while it's raining out, and I tell you this has happened to us before, we'll do it.
Hours on end.
So again, it's back to the whole culture. I feel like my whole life was groomed for this, and I can only imagine the guys that do it. It's got to be at some level the same sort of thing, because at one point in time, you're going to stop and you're going to ask yourself, I am paying for this experience. I am giving someone else my hard-earned money to immerse myself into this environment. There's got to be a reason for it, and I think deep down inside it's because we love every second of it, every dirty, wet, cold, painful second of it when we're out there and we're doing what we're doing. It's absolutely because we love it. And yeah, we love more than anything to play at this Picton complex, which you're going to hear me specifically talk about quite a bit, because some of the more intense action that Rapture Team has seen in the 4 years, going on 5 years of my airsoft experience, has taken place at Picton, and some that's coming up here soon. We're slotted for a game in April, a 20-hour game up there, where we're going to be defending our spawn for the entire 20 hours, essentially immersed in the game with no safe zone the entire time. Operation Wasp, that's being held.
Delta Stone.
That's right, Delta Stone.
ASC
so we're going to be in Rapture Team again. We're going to have an opportunity to play with some big Canadian team names out there. We got GOA. I think actually Viral from GOA, Guardians of Asgard, is command for that, I believe.
Yeah, for the civilian team.
Yeah. And I think MSF.
MSF is their civilians.
Yeah, and Doc Holliday and his guys.
I looked at a couple of the Force Recon guys might be attending that. I noticed last night.
Yeah. So
there's
just a big game.
Big teams that are going to be attending this. This is a series game too. What is this? Like the fourth of the series?
We did the first one.
Civil Hornet.
That's right. Civil Hornet again. And so these big milsims. Our team, this Rapture Team, what we do, like we're a milsim team. So the training that we do now, everything that we do is geared for these big games, and they are big games. They take months of planning. There's a lot of logistics that go into it. If you're going to go out there, you want to essentially know that the guys that are coming with you are as dedicated as you are. So I think that's where, again, going back to having a team, having a group of guys that you play with locally often, you know what's expected when you go out there. You know what is expected of you, and you know what you're expecting from your other guys. So being on Rapture Team with who we play with and with what we do, I think primarily we know that that's taken care of when we go out there. So back to 2012, before we had ever attended a Milsim event, our local field hosted
It would have been, yeah. It would
our
have been
first.
yeah.
It has to be. It has to be
a Milsim
because it was an
event.
8-hour nonstop game. That actually ended up experiencing a stop of play partway through, but that was because
I
of
think it was near the end. Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
a-
it was
uh,
for the no duff.
no
yes,
duff.
yes.
So anybody that's familiar with airsoft will know.
Yeah.
We'll discuss that. Oops.
Yeah, oops. So anybody that's familiar with airsoft knows what a no duff is. And again, so it's our first ever Milsim game. So we're playing. It's a big force-on-force game with a lot of objectives, and it was actually modeled after the World War II Operation Market Garden, and that's the airborne invasion of Holland, I believe. And it was the end game was to capture bridges and a succession of bridges over the Rhine River into Germany, hopefully trying to end the war by the coming Christmas. So this big battle took place in, like I said, over a bunch of bridges essentially. And the movie A Bridge Too Far depicts this historical battle. So this game was called A Bridge Too Far, and I think they called it A Bridge Too Far 2025 or something. It had some futuristic spin on it, or
We just go with it.
whatever it is. So we call it A Bridge Too Far. It's Operation Bridge Too Far. And this is Rapture Team's first ever Milsim, essentially. And I call it a Milsim because there was the command structure. It was a continuous game. It was supposed to be without a break. It was all objective based. With we had codes that we had to capture and call in. It was actually really cool. And,
On these physical bridges. Which
yeah,
is really
and physical bridges, which we had members wading through water to actually.
It was so neat, yeah.
So it was pretty intense, pretty exciting gameplay throughout the day, and it goes down as our first Milsim, which I would say that the Allies forces that we played, and actually we were the quick reaction force, I believe, or some sort of special element. Like we were positioned behind enemy lines before the start of the game. We had the joyous opportunity, I'll say, to wait in the bush for about 20 minutes, half an hour.
Well, yeah, it's the first time we ever got to use cold burning smoke.
Yep.
That's
Remember
right.
We
That's
smoked
right.
that bridge out. That was
Yeah.
awesome. We dumped a lot of smoke on that bridge.
Oh,
that
we
day.
did.
That game was a big first for a lot of us.
It
not
was.
like we were first deployed. We were given special abilities. That other.
Kimo ran with us that day as well, did he not?
Well, he was on the Allied team in total, but he was
Yeah.
still, at that point, was still with his former team, or a
Yeah.
group of guys that he used to play with all the time. He was on the Allied team, so he was a friendly to us, yes. So he ended up, at one point in time, I think we were in engagements with him sporadically throughout the day. But yeah, so with the kickoff of the game, when the game very first started the game, we were behind enemy lines, so to speak. So being the Allies, we were the paratroopers of the historical battle, which were dropped behind enemy lines and then had to survive. I think with the British 8 paras having to hold out for 8 days and eventually go into hiding. But for us, fortunately, we got to fight back right away and link up with our guys pretty quickly. But so it was a pretty good experience for us. I remember especially we had to we walk back there with all our gear and everything before anybody else is allowed on the field, and we take up our position, a position of our choosing, behind enemy lines, and we hunker down in this. I believe it was a ridge, actually pretty dangerously close. Looking back now, hindsight's 2020. We had no idea we were essentially on top of the enemy HQ. So
that's what the mosquitoes.
Yeah, so
we were.
So that was what. Yeah, we were just literally
so thick that
early morning in the summer. I remember
August
19th, 2012 was the exact date, and it was a hot summer day, and the mosquitoes were just terrible. And I remember I was in a t-shirt actually, and I immediately regretted being in a t-shirt, being in that thick bush, just eaten alive. But again, that's all part of it. I had a blast. And the game, we pushed hard all day. It was tough opposition, and we didn't start out strong per se, but we eventually fought back hard. And I would say a key point for us was that Overwatch position that ended up leading to us holding the main bridge, the main body bridge, for a good portion of the afternoon, which essentially gridlocked the enemy team. Not spawn trap, but they were forced to use alternate routes onto the field that essentially led them down into more of a crossfire position where we had guys already slated on the other flank to cut them up. So they had to either cross this. They had to work really hard. They had to either cross this narrow bridge where we were just laying down some hate, or they had to go back and fight through thick forest, then they had to break from a tree line, which led to an open field that they had to break from cover, and they were just getting caught out in the open with a lot of BBs. And then the score at the end of the day reflected that the team took a pretty big beating. We were able to essentially get on top of them at one point, and we shut down their CP. I remember breaking cover from the bush in the back.
We took their CP and we mercied all of them.
Literally, people inside reloading.
They were reloading, but at this time we were allowed to take their CPs. This wasn't like
it was not a safe zone. It was just their command post.
CP, and I remember rushing in. We cleared it. We killed who had weapons in their hand, and then we reloading. We opted to mercy for.
Yeah, just trying to be good guys.
Yeah, and I remember actually one of the gentlemen that we mercied wasn't very happy.
Yeah, he was a little bit perturbed that we got the drop on them while they were reloading. Go ahead, absolutely.
Well,
it's your kill. So
we tried discussing it again. Heat of the moment, he wasn't happy. We went to leave the building after we called in the airstrike on that building,
which would render it useless for the team.
For their CP. And I remember him shooting me in the back.
Yeah, and his answer was, well, I just spawned back in.
So it was just one of those. Like, you'll get that in Airsoft.
Absolutely.
You take them all with grains of salt.
Yeah.
It happens.
Exactly. So objective-based game, we come into their home, and we say, okay, look, this isn't your home anymore. You guys got to go. You guys got to go. This is the eviction notice. And we call in on the radio with the coordinates. And I remember I actually had to physically take a knee, because we're moving stealthily, cover to cover, to get the drop on these guys. And again, we're not trained military operators, so hand signals are, again, a very confusing part of Airsoft. Like, you try to work it out with your guys, but when your heart's racing and the goggles are fogging and you're really just trying to make a push, you just go with what you know. And now that we're 4 or 5 years into it, it's a lot more fluid, but back then it not necessarily was. But we ended up working good together, and we get around behind these guys, and we do what we got to do. And then Doc turns to me and says, call it in. So I get on the radio, and my first attempt was really just a waste of time. I was breathing heavily, and I couldn't make clear sense of what I was trying to say. So I actually had to physically take a knee and take a really deep breath, and then get a hold of my team command to call in this radio sequence of numbers and letters, for him to call that into game control, and then game control to call back and confirm, for my commander then to radio me and confirm that is in fact the code and it's been destroyed, all the while we're holding our guns on these people that are essentially trying to spawn in the building that we're now destroying, which a lot of people would know with Airsoft. If a building is under attack and it's considered a spawn, you're not allowed to use it as a spawn any longer, and that's essentially just to prevent extreme exchanges of BBs at close range, because if you're just spawning, getting shot, obviously it's not going to work out, right? So that was the issue there, I think. But we ended up it came back clean on us. The building was destroyed, and they weren't allowed to use it as a spawn for the rest of the day. Game control physically had to come onto the field and remove some of the guys. Yeah, remove some of the guys from the building that were still trying to use it as a spawn, and they ended up taping it off for the rest of the day. So that was a pretty good feeling for Rapture Team being our first milsim. And being able to deny the enemy the use of their spawn like that. And I believe later on in the day, Ryan, actually under the call sign Pliskin still, did you not lead an assault then on their second spawn at one point?
Yeah, so we had access to what was a helicopter insertion, which was essentially one of game control would be carrying this massive flag. The helicopter could carry 4 individuals. They would follow behind this flag, and while the flag was raised, they could not be shot from the helicopter, but they themselves could shoot out.
Yeah. So you're able to engage targets as you're landing, but they're not physically allowed to shoot you. Yeah.
One other stipulation.
So where'd you put the Ryan helicopter? Where'd you put the helicopter, Ryan?
So the other big stipulation with the helicopter was it could be placed on the story, the second story of a building. There were outdoor structures, and if it touched down on said building, any individual on that would be killed. And again, that was to discourage and play
super close.
Yeah, because they couldn't shoot at the helicopter individuals, but the helicopter people. So my
trying
great idea
trying
was,
to keep it fair while you're dropping. Essentially, I think how many guys you had with you? It was four guys. So
yeah.
4 guys dropping in basically into the shit, quote unquote.
Yeah. So I had Rapture, where Rapture Team was in the tree line, and I had these other individuals that I'd gathered together, and we were going to drop into the second story. It's a three building long. They're very very narrow.
Yeah. So there's like two tiers of them, kind of like
That
reinforced sheds
building,
almost.
right?
Yeah, they called it up at SOF. It's referred to as the embassy.
We'll post a picture up, but the walkways are fairly narrow. Anyways, the opposition was in the first building, the
First portion,
to the line.
First portion of the building.
Force line. So my logic was, okay, we'll drop it there, kill everyone, and then we'll fight our way forward, and hopefully the individuals from the tree line
Could support by fire while he's moving. Yep.
Exactly. So the helicopter made its way up the embassy, up the ramp. A few of their players realized what was happening. They stepped back to the second one. Everyone on the first one was killed, and immediately it was funny. Game Control said, like,
I think there was a physical dropping of a flag.
Yes, and he said, like, this is going to be quite the the show
Quite the showdown, yeah.
On his breath, because we were very close, and it was essentially 4 on 4 within 25 feet in like 2 very small buildings. And the second the flag went down, the rifles went up, and there was a huge just exchange of fire. There was full auto allowed, so there was a lot of
full auto, a lot of fast shooting, fast moving.
I was first in the helicopter. I was hit like within seconds of the flag going down. The individual behind me
really useful.
Well, I thought if I'm going to put myself in that situation, I wouldn't want to put anyone else where.
That's right. That's right. Lead by example.
That's it. So
Into the grinder, boys.
Exactly. If I'm going to take that hit, at least they can get through. Well, the kid, we'll call him behind me, made his way to run on the boardwalk that joins the 2 tiers.
Yeah.
And went right off.
Lost his footing, I guess we'll call it.
I think that's what it was. He just got a little happy feet, and getting onto the boards, he set that right off.
I don't know if we're allowed to plug Disney movies, bro.
Those large cylinder blocks is what the bridges were made of. That bridge was made out of, right? That transition there. And it was what, 2 or 3 tall.
Yeah, like it wasn't. So I don't think he didn't necessarily fall from a really high level.
It was high enough.
Maybe like shoulder height for me. So we're talking like 4.5 feet. I'm thinking.
4 to 5 feet. Like it was.
Maybe down into a little bit of a ditch with the.
Fell.
Yes.
And again, we can joke in high, like he's okay. At the time, we didn't know.
No,
yeah. So this is where the famed.
But it was like something out of a cartoon where his face rode part of the building the way down. When he landed kind of pinned. He pinned his arm against the building. His back was art, and he was like laying on himself, and it was just kind of.
And with equipment, and he's holding a weapon when he falls.
He could not. He was physically stuck. He could not.
Yeah.
And he was, I guess, scared from the fall as well. That was the note.
Yeah. So that's where again.
So I feel terrible at this point.
So
like,
with airsoft,
let's get to his death.
Yeah. So with airsoft, with the safety rules and everything, and we'll talk about this more. We get like into the in-depth idea of how it's actually played. But no duff essentially is
stoppage of game.
It's a stoppage of game. It's a safety terminology that is drilled into every person's mind, head. It has to be, and it's when you hear it in airsoft. Yeah, I said mind, head. When you hear it in airsoft, it means you stop. You stop what you're doing. You take your mag out. It doesn't matter how awesome of a grenade throw you're about to make, or if you get the drop on 25 guys. It doesn't. None of it matters. All of that stuff is gone. Immediately stops. And you take your gun out. First, what you do when you hear it is you repeat it. You repeat it as loud as you can. So that means I say no duff.
No duff.
No duff.
And that makes its way around the field until every player in every corner of the AO, its area of operation, knows that there's a no duff, stoppage of play. And you stop moving tactically. You stand up. You take your magazine out of your weapon and you clear the chamber. In an airsoft, that means firing a couple of shots because everybody knows that their hop-up unit can house a few BBs. So it's just again, it's a safety precaution. It's a way of clearing the chamber, so to speak, in airsoft, and you remain like that until everything is
otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Until it's made safe, until you know the situation, what has happened.
Depending on the severity of it, you might be asked to go back to the safe zone.
Yeah, and in this situation, that's what happened. So we were asked to everybody was asked to remove themselves from the field and go back to the safe zone. And this day, for the local field, SOF, the entire field was in place. So this meant walking back to the cars, which is a pretty good hike at SOF. For anybody that's been there, Soldier of Fortune in Hamilton, it's a pretty good hike from where you actually play up to the cars. So we had to kind of take ourselves off the field, which was, you know what, it's the right thing to do when someone's hurt. So it was again, Milsim was supposed to be a continuous game, but we ended up having this break because of the no duff. But I know I used it to my advantage. I drank a bunch of water and I rehydrated, and then everything was taken care of and we were able to get back going. But yeah, I think we just wanted to talk a little bit about how Milsim's kind of evolved from one thing to the next very quickly, and that's the kind of the team that Rapture Team is. And we play Milsim games frequently, and that's if we're not playing a Milsim game. We're playing a smaller game to prepare for a Milsim game, using the time to train essentially and grow as a unit to be better when we go to these bigger games. So I guess that's pretty much all I want to say as far as the formation of the team. Like when we really just the thought process it wasn't behind putting it all together. What we sort of expected from each other early on in the first couple of months. Leading up to our first Milsim event that was in the summertime, roughly about 5 or 6 months into starting the team. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys want to add anything or comments on what I've said.
No, I mean there's a lot of history and stuff too, but I think we'll get into it later.
Yeah, there's
absolutely.
You're gonna have a lot more.
And that's just it. These two right here are going to be no strangers as far as episodes in the future, because these are my guys. This is what I do with. So they're going to help me explain it all to the masses out there and make some sense of it. But as far as this one goes, guys, I think I've shared what I want to share for now. Be sure to check back next time as I continue to talk with Rapture Team Airsoft about their first few Milsims they attended as a young budding team way back in 2012. You've just been listening to The Sixth Hour, Airsoft Through Silk's Eyes, RT06. I've really had a blast talking with you guys this week. Can't wait until next time, and we can do it all over again. Until then, keep your batteries charged, your mags gassed, and your gear stowed. And remember, boys and girls, stay safe. And always, always call your hits. Silk out.